Okay. Notice, we'll check to make sure that we're online on Facebook. Good, everything's set. Go back. Okay, so we're going to get started. And first we're going to chant as we normally do. Today we're going to chant Viva Varishesha Aloka Pravesha Nija Chari Uta Jiva. Viva Varishesha Aloka Pravesha Nija Chari Uta Jiva Bolo Hari Hari Makuna. Sorry, I have to change something here on the internet. Sorry about that. Viva Varishesha Aloka Pravesha Nitya Chari Uta Jiva Bolo Hari Hari Kunda Murare Rama Krishna Hayagriva Singhavamana Shivada Surana Rajandanandana Shama Uttana Gatana Gaitama Shatana Jayarati Rama Yashoda Dulala Govinda Gopala Vrindavana Purandara Gopi Priya Jana Radhika Ramana Bhuvana Sundara Ora Ravana Tagora Makanata Skora Gopi Jana Vastraga Jera Rakolo Gopavrinda Polo Chitare Vamshi Dare Prajan Yogendra Vandana Srinanda Vandana Jana Rajajana Vaya Upamanohara Mohanavamji Vihare Shodanandana Kamshani Sudana Kunjara Savilatsi Kadamakanana Rasaparayana Vrindavipina Vivasi Anandavardana Prema Vedana Ulashara Yoshakama Upangana Chita Vinodana Samastakuna Gana Dhamma Jamuna Jivana Kene Parayana Manasa Chandra Chakora Ashuda Rasa Gal Krishna Jasa Rakova Chanamana Mura Viva Varishi Shalok Rovesha Jachare Uta Jiva Hari Ramakrishna Deva, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Guru, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gaur Hare, Bol Hati Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Om Vishnupada, Paramahansa Parvacharya, all Stuteta Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti, Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya, Srila Hridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mathuranam Ki Jai. Jagannatha Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Shatarni. So Om Ganat Timiranda Shagananjana Shalakaya Jakshur Un Miditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Okay, so Om Ganat Timiranda Shah. Okay, so we're going to continue with our Caitanya Caritamrta reading, and we're happy to see everybody here. Especially we like to welcome Dowji, who I noticed is listening in on his phone to the class. So we're reading from the 13th chapter of the Madhya Lila of the Caitanya Caritamrta, and we're on text 151, I believe, of the 13th chapter. Hold on a second, I have to set something here on Zoom. Anyway, Zoom, there we go. Got it. Okay, so we're going to share the screen right now with everybody and continue with the reading and the explanation of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, especially the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya at the Rath Yatra in Jagannath Puri, and during this Rath Yatra he is exhibiting signs of separation from Krishna because Lord Chaitanya is in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So let us continue, and we'll share the screen right now. So Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, let's get set up here so you can all read and follow along with me. Okay, let's start. Thoma sabara prema rase, amake karila vishe, ami tamara dina kevala, Thoma sabachadana, amadura deshelana, Racha Rakiyache Dharaiva Prabhala. My dear Srimati Radharani, I am always subservient to the loving affairs of all of you. I am under your control only. My separation from you and residence in distant places have occurred due to my strong misfortune. So this is actually Krishna replying to Lord Chaitanya's pleas that come back to Vrindavan. Priya Priya Sangahina Priya Priya Sangavina Nahijiye Aisacha Pramana Moradasha Shonayabe Tanra Dashabe E Boye Tunhe Rake Prana. When a woman is separated from the man she loves, or a man is separated from his beloved woman, neither of them can live. It is a fact that they live only for each other, for if one dies and the other hears of it, he or she will also die. Whew. That of course, refers to love, when people actually love each other and can't live without each other. And we've seen that in couples, even in America, what to speak of other countries. When the man dies, the woman will die shortly thereafter, or when the woman dies, the man will die shortly thereafter, feeling that separation. Of course, originally in India, they had this thing called the sati rite. And the sati rite was a performance, well, I don't know if it was a performance, but it was a rite in which when the husband died, and if there were no children for the wife to take care of, she would want to end her life. Not that someone else would end her life for her, not that someone else would throw her into the fire, but she could not bear the separation. This is how much love there was there in that Vedic culture. Love between the man and the wife and the husband, the guru and disciple. And that's really, to a certain extent, that's what's lacking now on all levels. We're not only talking about guru-disciple. This is not a pointed point. But in all levels, between children and their families, between friends, you just don't find these loving exchanges. Say sati premavati, premavan se pati, viyogeye panche priyahite, nakane apana dukha, vanchi priyajana sukha sedvi mile achirate. Such a loving, chaste wife and loving husband desire all welfare for each other in separation, do not care for personal happiness, desiring only each other's well-being. Such a pair certainly meet again without delay. Wish we had people like this in our society, even in the Krishna conscious society, people who had these tight relationships, who couldn't live without each other. And you'll see this in some of the pastimes of the Acharyas. Now, this reminds me of the story of Narottama Das Thakur and his friend Ramchandra Kaviraj. Ramchandra Kaviraj was not a disciple of Narottama Das Thakur, he was a disciple of Srinivasa Acharya. So he, that is Ramchandra Kaviraj, and Narottama Das Thakur were so inseparable that even when Narottama Das Thakur ordered Ramchandra Kaviraj, to go home for a while, I guess Christmas vacation, no, that's a joke, to go home for a while, Ramchandra Kaviraj couldn't walk more than 50 meters away from where Narottama Das Thakur was. And when Narottama Das Thakur looked up and he saw that Ramchandra Kaviraj could not leave, Ramchandra Kaviraj got so, let's say, guilty, feeling that he had not followed the order of his guru's godbrother, that he started to hit himself with a stick. Wow. And Narottama Das Thakur rushed up to him and said, "Don't beat me, don't hit me." In other words, they were so close to each other. Pain to one was the same as pain to the other. I mean, that is an amazing relationship. And these are the sorts of thick and thin relationships we need in a Vaishnava society. Of course, the quintessential example of that is the relationship between Radha and Krishna. Krishna is always thinking of Radha, and Radha is always thinking of Krishna. So this is what we're hearing about right now. But we can learn. We can actually learn from these particular examples. Very important. Rakite tamara jivana sevyami narayana tanra shakti asi niti niti tomasane kridagare niti ayadu puri tahantumi manaha moraspurti. You are my most dear, and I know that in my absence you cannot live for a moment. Just to keep you living, I worship Lord Narayan. By his merciful potency, I come to Vrindavan every day to enjoy pastimes with you. I then return to Dwarkadam. Thus you can always feel my presence there in Vrindavana. Wow! So, of course, it's aprakrita, in other words, not manifest, but the presence is there. And even today, if you go to Braj, to Vrindavan, which means the whole Braj Mandal area, you can feel the presence of Krishna. Krishna is there even today. It's very tangible. You may not see Krishna, well, you may not, you won't see Krishna, but you'll feel Krishna's presence because he's there. Galoka evanivashikti akilatmavuta. Krishna never leaves Braj. And actually, Krishna expands himself, and apparently he's leaving Braj to go to Mathura and eventually Dwarka, but he is not leaving Braj. Krishna, in his original aspect, only manifests himself in Braj. So you may say, so what can I do? Well, if you worship Krishna properly and chant his name, then your mind, Shuddhahabi Manat, Kabai Hama, Hey Rabo, Sri Vrindavana, your mind becomes Vrindavan. So you can actually experience Krishna's presence in your mind. Or when you establish deities, that becomes a localized, temporary manifestation of Vrindavan. So Krishna is also there in the temples. So Mora bhagyana mo vishaye tamaraye prema haye se prema parama prabala lukana hamampane sangakaraya tamasane prakateha anibe satvara. Our loving affairs are more powerful because of my good fortune in receiving Narayana's grace. This allows me to come there unseen by others. I hope that very soon I will be visible to everyone by Narayan's grace. Krishna is Narayan. Krishna has two kinds of presence. This is what we talked about before. Prakata and aprakata. Manifest and unmanifest. These are identical for the sincere devotee. I'll repeat that. These are identical for the sincere devotee. Even if Krishna is not physically present, the devotee's constant absorption in the affairs of Krishna makes him always present. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. 538. Premanjana Charita Bhakti Pravuchanena Santaksadaiva Riyeshu Vilokyanti Yang Shamasundara Machincha Guna Sadhu Bam Govinda Madhipurisham Tamaham Pajami. Due to his intense love, the pure devotee always sees Lord Krishna present within his heart. All glories to Govinda, the primeval personality of Godhead. Adi Purusha means the original person. I worship him. When Krishna is not manifest before the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they are always absorbed in thoughts of him. Therefore, even though at that time Krishna was living in Dwarka, he was simultaneously present before all the inhabitants of Vrindavana. This was his aprakata presence. Devotees who are always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna will soon see Krishna face to face without a doubt. In other words, devotees who are always engaged in Krishna consciousness and are fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna certainly return home back to Godhead. They then see Krishna directly face to face, talk with him, and enjoy his company. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter, text 9. Chaktva-deham punarjanma naiti mameti sojana, which means, upon giving up the body, tyaktva is like chucking away the body. That's how you remember that. Deham means body. Punar means again. Janma means birth. So upon giving up the body, repeated again birth or repeated birth, naiti, does not occur. But mam eti sojana. Mam eti sojana means, but they come to me. Because during his lifetime, a pure devotee is always speaking of Krishna and engaging in his service. As soon as he gives up his body, he immediately returns to Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna is personally present. He then meets Krishna directly. This is successful human life. This is the meaning of prakateha anibe satvara. The pure devotee will soon see the personal manifestation of Lord Shri Krishna. Very interesting. So in other words, when we think about Krishna, when we chant his name, when we're in the holy place, when we're hearing Krishna's pastimes, Krishna manifests as a prakata manifestation. That means not seen, but felt. He's there. He's hiding, but he's there. That's why the residents or the Goswamis of Vrindavan would go around Vrindavan chanting what? Hey Radhe, Brajadeva Ke, Hey Nanda, Shuno Kuta. That means, oh Radharani, oh Krishna, where are you? Because Krishna was there, but he's sort of hiding from us, at least from our vision. But we feel his presence. And a pure devotee, he feels Krishna's presence everywhere. Vrindavan, everywhere. Because everywhere he goes is Vrindavan. Anywhere Prabhupada went, that's Vrindavan. Because Prabhupada brought Vrindavan with him. The Vrindavan atmosphere and the prakata manifestation of Krishna. Yadavera vipaksha Yata dushta kamsa paksha Tahanami kailun sabakshaya Ache dvi charijana Taham Hari Brindavana Ailama Ami Janiha Nischaya. Okay. I have already killed all the mischievous demons who were enemies of the Yadu dynasty, and I've also killed Kangsa and his allies. But there are 2 or 4 demons still living. I want to kill them, and after doing so, I shall very soon return to Vrindavan. Please know this for certain. Just as Krishna does not take a step away from Vrindavan, yes, exactly what I said, Krishna's devotee also does not like to leave Vrindavan. However, when he has to tend to Krishna's business, he leaves Vrindavan. This is Prabhupada referring to himself. Krishna's devotee also does not like to leave Vrindavan. However, when he has to tend to Krishna's business, he leaves Vrindavan. So Prabhupada is tending to Krishna's business. After finishing his mission, a pure devotee returns home, back to Vrindavan, back to Godhead. Krishna assures Radharani that after killing the demons outside Vrindavan, he would return. I'm coming back very soon. He promised as soon as I've killed the few remaining demons. So this is actually interesting if you, let's say, contrast this with Prabhupada's life. That Prabhupada left Vrindavan to carry out the Lord's mission, to kill the demons in our hearts. And when he had killed the demons in our hearts and empowered us to kill demons in other people's hearts, then he came back to Vrindavan in the final stages of his pastimes and left this world from Vrindavan. Se Shatrugana Haite Rajajana Rakite Rahi Raje Udasina Hanna Yebastri Putradane Kari Raja Avarane Yaduganera Santosha Lagiha. I wish to protect the inhabitants of Vrindavan from the attacks of my enemies. That is why I remain in my kingdom. Otherwise, I am indifferent to my royal position. Whatever wives, sons, and wealth I maintain in the kingdom are only for the satisfaction of the Yadu. So what Krishna is saying here is that the reason he actually is in charge of the Yadu dynasty, of course, we were saying is the formal king, but Krishna's actually, for all intents and purposes, he's the one in charge. So the only reason he takes charge of the Yadu dynasty and has left Vrindavan is to protect Vrindavan. Because in order to protect Vrindavan, he has to take on the role of a Kshatriya. But Krishna's natural position is as a Vaishya, a coward boy, Gopal, Govinda. So he has to switch roles in order to protect the cows and the residents of Vrindavan. So everything is based on Vrindavan. In other words, Krishna is saying, even my leaving Vrindavan is for the sake of Vrindavan. So Krishna is Vrindavan centered. Try to remember that. Tumara ye prema guna kareyama akarshana anibeyama dina dashe vishe punasi Vrindavane rajavado tomasane vilasiva rijane nivase. Your loving qualities always attract me to Vrindavan. Indeed, they will bring me back within 10 or 20 days. And when I return, I shall enjoy both day and night with you and all the damsels of Brajabhumi. This is again Krishna speaking. Eta tanre kahi Krishna Brajayate satrishna Eka shloka padishunaila Se shloka shune radha Khandila sakalabada Krishna prapjay patiti ahila. While speaking to Srimati Radharani, Krishna became very anxious to return to Vrindavan. He made her listen to a verse which banished all her difficulties and which assured her that she would again attain Krishna. Wow. This is really, really deep, deep, deep poetry and rasa. Anyway, I cannot emphasize that enough. Mai bhaktir hi bhutanam amritavaya kalpate dishayara shinmat sneho vadatina mahalapanaha. This is Sanskrit. The Lord Sri Krishna said, devotional service unto me is the only way to attain me. My dear gopis, whatever love and affection you have attained for me by good fortune is the only reason for my returning to you. In other words, Krishna is controlled by devotion. That's one of the qualities of pure devotional service. That's why pure devotional service is rarely achieved, according to Srila Rupa Goswami. Of course, as I mentioned, that's for the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 82nd chapter, text 44. Esavarita Prabhu Swarupera Sane Ratri Dine Garevasi Kare Ashvadane. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sit in his room with Swarup Damodar and taste the topics of these verses day and night. Nricha Kale Sevavaya Vishtahana Shlokapadi Nache Jagannatha Mukachana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced, completely absorbed in ecstatic emotion. While looking at the face of Lord Jagannath, he danced and recited these verses. Sarupa Goshanira Bhagya Nayaya Varnana Prabhute Avishtayanra Kaya Vakya Mana. No one can describe the good fortune of Swarup Damodar Goswami, for he is always absorbed in the service of the Lord with his body, mind, and words. Swaruperindriye Prabhura Nijendriya Gana Avishtahana Karegana Ashvadana. The senses of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were identical with the senses of Swarup. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to become fully absorbed in tasting the singing of Swarup Damodar. Now remember, Swarup Damodar is the avatar of Lalita Devi. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, but Krishna completely immersed in the mood of Srimati Radharani, in not only the mood, the identity, everything related with Srimati Radharani. So he is identifying himself as Srimati Radharani at this particular juncture. And Swarup Damodar is Lalita Devi, Srimati Radharani's most intimate associate. Bhavera Veshe Kabu Bhumite Vasya Tarjanite Bhume Like Adumukahana. In emotional ecstasy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes sit on the ground and looking down would write on the ground with his finger. Angulite Kshatahabe Jani Damodara Boy Nijakare Nivaraye Prabhukara. Fearing that the Lord would injure his finger by writing in this way, Swarup Damodar checked him with his own hand. Prabhura Bhavanu Rupa Sarupera Gana Yabeye Rasataha Kare Murtiman. Swarup Damodar used to sing exactly according to the ecstatic emotion of the Lord. Whenever a particular mellow was being tasted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar would personify it by singing. So what's a mellow? A particular taste. Ras. Ras or rasa means a taste. Just like in food, you have a particular mellow, a sweet, salty, sour. So there's mellows that are tasted by the devotees emotionally. It's an emotional mellow right here. And Swarup Damodar Goswami would come up with a poem or song that resonated with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood at that particular point. Just like Lalita Devi would do that with Srimati Radharani. She would resonate Srimati Radharani's mood. Resonate means she would actually vibrate sympathetically. As they say, like if you have two strings that are the same frequency, they actually have sympathetic vibrations. You learn that when you're tuning the guitar. Shri Jagannath Eradeke Shri Mukha Kamala Taharo Parasundara Nayana Yugala. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu looked upon the beautiful lotus-like face and eyes of Lord Jagannath. Suryara Kirane Mukha Kare Jalamala Malyavastra Divya Alankara Parimala. Lord Jagannath was garlanded, dressed, with nice garments and adorned with beautiful ornaments. His face was glittering from the rays of sunshine, and the entire atmosphere was fragrance. Prabhura Hridayananda Sindhu Thoi Lila Unmara Janjavata Takshane Utila. An ocean of transcendental bliss expanded in the heart of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and symptoms of madness immediately intensified like a hurricane. So these symptoms are called Vyabhachari Bhavas. There's 33 of them that are listed by Srila Rupa Goswami. Anandon Marayutaya Bhavera Taranga Nanabhava Sainye Upajila Yudaranga. The madness of transcendental bliss created waves of various emotions. The emotions appeared like opposing soldiers staging a fight. Bhavodaya Bhavashanti Sandisha Valya Sanchari Sattvika Stahi Swabhava Pravalya. There was an increase in all the natural emotional symptoms. Thus there were awakening emotions, peacefulness, joined, mixed, transcendental, and prevalent emotions, and impetuses for emotion. So let me explain what's happening here. Oh my God. So, let's go through the word by word sentence. Bhavatoya, it means that's like a stimulation for emotion, which is called the Sthai Bhava, technically speaking, in Rupa Goswami's nomenclature. And Bhava Shanti Sandhi, it means peaceful emotions, but then there's an injunction or conjunction with different emotions. And that's all Shabalya, also means the mixing. And Sanchari is a type of bhavas that's the same thing as Vyabhachari bhavas. There's 33 of those, and they're intermittent, and they're very powerful, and they can't be controlled by the person experiencing them. Oh, wow. Sattvika refers to the Asta Sattvika bhavas, which are part of the constitution of the living entity, because he is in touch with Vishuddha Sattva, the purified mode of goodness. Sthai Bhava means one's emotions that are connected with one's rati, or a particular relationship with Krishna. For example, there's certain Sthai Bhavas, or emotions, connected with conjugal relationship, or friendship relationship, or parental relationship, or servitor relationship, etc. Swabhava means one's own swa, one's own emotion, or as Prabhupada translates here, natural emotion, and prabhalya, they increase. So in other words, all these different emotions, the Sthai Bhava, the Anubhava is not mentioned here specifically, which means the voluntary response to the stimulation, like dancing and rolling on the ground, something you can control. So the Anubhava, the Ashtar Sattvika Bhava, the eightfold transcendental feelings that occur because one is situated in the Vishuddha Sattva. And then finally, the Sanchari Bhava, not finally, but next to the last, the Sanchari Bhava, which is the uncontrolled ecstasies. And finally, the Sthai Bhava, that is the ecstasies or emotions that are connected to your relationship with Krishna. There was an increase in all the natural... We actually read that already. Prabhura Sharirayena Shura Himachala Bhava Pushpa Drumatahe Pushpita Sakala. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body appeared like a transcendental Himalayan mountain bearing ecstatic emotional flower trees, all of them blooming. So it was like the stand of the hairs on end, or goosebumps that occur in the skin as symptoms of ecstasy. Degiteya karshiye sabara chitamana premamrita vrishche prabhu sinche sabara mana. The sight of all these symptoms attracted everyone's mind and consciousness. Indeed, the Lord sprinkled everyone's mind with the nectar of transcendental love of Godhead. Jagannatha Sevaka Yata Rajapatra Gana Yatrika Loka Nilachalevasi Yata Jana. He sprinkled the minds of the servants of Lord Jagannath, the government officers, the pilgrim visitors, the general populace, and all the residents of Jagannath Puri. Prabhura Nritya Prema Deki Aya Chamatkara Krishna Prema Uchalila Hridaye Savara. Upon seeing the dancing and ecstatic love of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, everyone was astonished in their hearts. They became infatuated with love of Krishna. In other words, they came in touch with Lord Chaitanya, and just by coming in touch, seeing Lord Chaitanya, hearing about Lord Chaitanya, hearing the kirtan, they actually felt symptoms of ecstasy. And this is described in the Nectar of Devotion, that even a materialist, when coming in contact with a pure devotee, or hearing an ecstatic kirtan, or hearing ecstatic Krishna Katha, can feel ecstasy. Of course, that's not permanent ecstasy. That's described as like burned up or dried up ecstasy. But later on, by the influence of the pure devotees, if that person stays in the association of pure devotees, that ecstasy can become para or transcendental. I mean, I had that experience too. The first time I heard Prabhupada chanting, I felt ecstasy. And at that particular juncture, I was not a member of the Krishna Conscious Society. I didn't even know what I was at that time. Probably a student studying physics, of all things. Preme, nache gaya loka, kare kola hala, prabhura nurcha deki sabe anande vivala. Everyone danced and chanted in ecstatic love, and a great noise resounded. Everyone was overwhelmed with transcendental bliss just to see the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anyaraki kaya Jagannathala dhara, prabhura nritya deki suke chalila mantara. Apart from the others, even Lord Jagannath and Lord Balaram with great happiness began to move very slowly upon seeing the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kabusuke nritya ranga deke ratakraki se kautukaye dekila se tarasakshi. Lord Jagannath and Lord Balaram sometimes stopped the car and happily observed Lord Chaitanya's dancing. Anyone who was able to see them stop and watch the dancing bore witness to their pastimes. Emata Prabhu nritya karite varamate prataparudre rahage lagila patite. When Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing and wandering in this way, he fell down in front of Maharaj Prataparudra. Actually, Lord Chaitanya did that deliberately, but you'll see what happens. Sambrame Prataparudra Prabhuke Darhila Tahake Dekite Prabhura Vaya Jnana Hila. Maharaj Prataparudra picked the Lord up with great respect, but upon seeing the king, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to his external senses. So he wanted to just like show, he wasn't actually upset, but he wanted to make believe that he was upset just to show an example of how sannyasis should avoid materialistic people, even though the king was not materialistic. He was a pure devotee to the Lord. But Lord Chaitanya was showing one has to be very careful of people involved in politics and money and all those other nice things. Rajadeki Mahaprabhu Karena Dikara Chi Visharira Sparsha Haila Mara. Upon seeing the king, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu condemned himself of saying, "Oh, how pitiful it is that I have touched a person who is interested in mundane affairs." Just set an example, because actually Lord Chaitanya knew that this personality, King Prataparudra, was a great devotee of the Lord. Aveshete Nichananda Nahaila Savadane Kashisura Govinda Chila Anya Stane. Not even Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Kashishvara Pandit. Hold on a second. Or Govinda took care of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he fell down. Nityananda was in great ecstasy, and Kashishvara and Govinda were elsewhere. Yadyapi rachara deki adira sevana prasana hana chaitanre milibare mana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already been satisfied by the king's behavior, for the king had accepted the service of a sweeper for Lord Jagannath. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually desired to see the king, but he didn't act like that. He was waiting till the king later on dressed like an ordinary person and approached him in a humble way. Of course, the king also approached Lord Chaitanya at that time in a humble way, but because he had the dress of a king, it didn't appear externally humble. Tatapiya panagane karita savadana vaye kichurushavasa kaila bhagavan. However, just to warn his personal associates, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, externally expressed feelings of anger. And Prabhupada explains, when Maharaj Prataparuja asked to see the Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately refused, saying, Niskinchana Bhagavat Vajano Mukasya Param Param Jigam Ishur Bhava Sagarasya Sandarshanam Vishyanam Ata Yoshitam Cha Ha Hanta Vishya Bhakshana Topya Sadhu. That's from the Caitanya Caritamrta Madhya Lila 11th chapter, text 8, and also written in the Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka 823. The word Niskinchanasya refers to a person who has finished his material activities. Such a person can begin to execute his activities in Krishna consciousness to cross over the ocean of nescience. It is very dangerous for such a person to have intimate relationships with mundane people or to become intimately related with women. This formality is to be observed by anyone who is serious about going back home, back to Godhead. To teach his personal associates these principles, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expressed external anger when touched by the king. Since the Lord was very much satisfied with the humble behavior of the king, he intentionally allowed the king to touch him, but externally he expressed anger just to warn his personal associates. Very interesting. Prabhuravachane rajaramane hailabhaya sarvabhaumakahe tume nakara sanjaya. King Prataparuja became frightened when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed external anger, but Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya told the king, don't worry, because he understood that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was just setting an example for others. Tomara apare parabura suprasanamana tomalakshakari shikayena nijagana. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya informed the king, the Lord is very satisfied with you. By pointing you out, he was teaching his personal associates how to behave with mundane people. Very careful. Although outwardly the king was a mundane man interested in money and women, internally he was purified by devotional activities. He showed this by engaging as a street sweeper to please Lord Jagannath. A person may appear to be a pounds and shillings man interested in money and women, but if he is actually very meek and humble and surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is not mundane. Such a judgment can be made only by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his very confidential devotees. As a general principle, however, no devotee should intimately mix with mundane people interested in money and women. Avasara janayami kariba nivedana se kalayai kariha prabhura milana. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continued, I shall submit your petition when there is an opportune moment. It will then be easy for you to come and meet the Lord. Tabi Mahaprabhu Rata Pradakshina Kriya Rata Pache Hai Tele Rate Mata Diya. After circumambulating Jagannath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went behind the car and began pushing it with his head. And we're going to hear about this tomorrow, so we're going to stop here. We went up to text 189 today. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow with text 190. So now we're going to take some questions. And we're going to stop sharing the screen. We're going to unmute or allow you all to unmute yourselves or raise your hand or write your question in the text window. Either write your question, unmute yourself, raise your hand, or somehow or other ask a question. So who has a question? Going once, going twice. I don't see anybody raising their hand or typing or asking a question. Oh, here. Okay, so Gayatri has a question. So, she just offered her obeisances. What does a devotee fall down mean? Ooh, that's a good question. Devotee fall down means, in one sense, in a larger sense, one who breaks the regulated practices. In other words, takes intoxication, eats meat, gambling, or illicit sex. That's one sense, and doesn't chant, or stops their regulated practices of devotion, so stops the chanting. That's that. That's a very gross fall down. Of course, everyone who is not 100% Krishna conscious is falling down throughout the day in the sense of forgetting Krishna, or becoming envious of Krishna, trying to imitate Krishna, or becoming envious of some other jiva soul, or losing control of your senses. But in a practical sense, fall down means to leave Krishna consciousness. And of course, Krishna in the Gita says, my devotee, in spite of the most kontya pratijanahi, name bhakta pranashati, my devotee will never perish, in spite of the most abominable activity. That's a very interesting thing. So sometimes you find a devotee deviates, and then Krishna still considers that devotee saintly, because that devotee's deviation happened to be accidental, and the devotee picks himself up. So that's an important point to consider. Whereas if someone's deviation is premeditated, it's a completely different subject matter. So anyway, so we don't criticize devotees for having trouble, accidental fall down, or some habit that they may have from before. One should be very careful of criticizing devotees. And if you disagree with a devotee, you can disagree with what they say, but you should not commit what we say an ad hominem offense. Ad hominem means personal attack. Okay, here's another one. Can you elaborate more on association with people with material desire, materialistic people? Well, obviously, as being part of this world, we got to associate with everybody somehow or other. But intimate association, revealing the mind and confidence, should only be done with those, obviously sometimes we have to do things, but generally we should only be doing that with those who have Krishna consciousness in their heart, and who are our well-wishers, who want the best for us and know what the best is. Sometimes someone could want the best for us, but they don't know what the best is. For example, let's say if I was sick and I would go to some friend, and the friend would say, I know what you should do. But the friend is not a doctor. So he may want the best for me, but he doesn't know the best. So two things have to be there. A person has to want the best and know the best. And so we have to be careful about taking guidance from those who do not know the best. They may really care about us, but they don't know the best. Here's another question. Oh, another question. Is Lalita Shastri the appearance day of Lalita Saki, which was a few days before Radhastami? Yes, Lalita Devi. That's what I've been generally informed of. Hare Krishna Gurudev. Oh, wait, that's the same question. Hare Krishna Srila Gurudev. In this pastime, there's Lord Jagannath, Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna Balaram. All these are All these are different universes in the spiritual world are the same, they move around. No, Lord Jagannath appears in every universe. Lord Chaitanya is in every universe. And Krishna is in every universe. And all these pastimes are going on right now in some universe or many different universes. Prabhupada describes it like a routine spool. Routine spool refers to something that we used to have in the old days, a movie. Movie? Because probably no one here knows what a movie is. So in those days, a movie meant there was a piece of film with many, many, many little pictures on it. And this piece of film, it was 35 millimeter in the professional theaters. And this piece of film, or sometimes 70 millimeters wide, in widescreen, would move in front of a light, and the light would be focused utilizing a lens on the screen. And as each picture moved by, you had the illusion of motion, right? Because in each picture, there were like, I think there's like 25 frames a second or something, or I know in the videos it's 29.97 frames a second, but I think in the professional movie theaters it was 25. Who knows? I mean, I never operated a professional theater. So the frames would move by, and each frame would be slightly different than the next frame, than the frame before it. And so you get the appearance of motion. Just like if you flip, I don't know if you've ever seen like a flip movie where you flip different frames in front of your eyes and it appears like it's moving, but it's actually not moving. And so Prabhupada described that Krishna's pastimes are like that routine spool of film where one frame is occurring in one universe of Krishna's pastimes, and as that frame goes on and leaves the illumination, then that previous frame is manifest in another universe. In other words, it occurs again and again. Or just like you have a movie that's shown in a movie theater, like if you go for the 5 o'clock showing or if you go for the 10 o'clock showing, it's the same movie. So Krishna's pastimes are like that. And they can all occur simultaneously in all the universes at what simultaneous means the same time. And at the same time, Krishna can be performing pastimes in his multifarious incarnations, which are described as more numerous than waves on the ocean. Krishna is unlimited. So in every universe, the answer is in every universe, these pastimes are going on. Unlimited. Urmila Devi, love and trust. Love, they want the best. Trust, they know the best. That's pretty good. Love and trust. Trust, they know the best. So we have to make sure that someone knows the best. It's not something wanting the best. You know, people can ask me so many questions that I'll just say I don't know about mundane things and about their welfare. I mean, certain things, mundane things, I do know. I do know that in public situations people should wear masks. That's not a spiritual point, but there is objective reality. Now, many things are subjective in this world, like how do you feel? Those are my feelings. Are you hungry? No, I'm not hungry. What do you like to eat? These are all subjective. Or is it hot in this room? No, maybe cold for you, hot for me. These are subjective. There's subjective reality, but there's also objective reality. A Vaishnava does not ignore objective reality. Like Prabhupada was not against science. Like if there was some scientific study, for example, there's data out there that of the people who are in the hospital, who are sick with COVID, over 90% are people who were not vaccinated. That's data. Now, I can believe it, or I can not believe it. That's up to me. But that's data. It's true. We're not decrying objective reality. We're not decrying all sense perception. However, the ultimate standard for truth, spiritual truth, is the Srimad Bhagavatam according to Srila Jiva Goswami. And this, of course, is our epistemology. But, let's say, if I hold a carrot in front of my face, I know it's a carrot. Now, unless I have some mental illness or something like that. But if I show it to you and I do a survey and everybody says, yeah, it's a carrot, then, it is a carrot. There's no doubt about it. So the problem now in modern society is that many people are suffering from what we call cognitive dissonance. They believe something really strong or strongly, and it's not the same thing that's happening in the material world. It's just not. I can believe that I'm God, which is an interesting belief. Of course, you may have some people in insane asylum believing you're God, but then there's mass cognitive dissonance, in which you get people who hear something enough times and they believe it, hear a lie enough times, or something that's not true, which is a lie, enough times, and they believe it and they buy into it, and their whole life is based upon that. Like people who don't believe that there's such thing as COVID. I was listening to not a class, but I was listening to some statements by some person today who said, people don't die of COVID. In one sense, that's true, because when they get COVID, they die from something else. Their immune system overreacted. But that's not the point he was making. He says people don't die from COVID because it's just that however they die, even if they have a heart attack, the government attributes that to a COVID death, which is really a disconnect from reality. Okay, so just a few more questions. As you see, I want to be connected to reality, somehow or other. So here's the question. Gurudev, can you please explain why we don't celebrate Jagannatha's appearance? Yes, we do, Rath Yatra. Okay. Thank you, Gurudev. Is King Prataparudra an incarnation of Maharaj Indradyumna? I think it was mentioned like that. I think in one of the books it was. Another. Krugadunin. Don't even know who that is. Now I really have a disconnect from reality. Someone just wrote some words that I have no inclination of what they mean. Krugadunin. I think they may have to see a doctor. So, on that happy note, I think that's all the questions we have today, and we should end right now. We'll see you all tomorrow. We just read, just one question. We just read that one has to finish his material activities, then one can engage in Krishna consciousness. What does that mean? To engage in full Krishna consciousness means you have to finish your material activities, and all your activities have to be meant for the service of the Lord. And you can do that. You could still have a job, you could still function in this world, you could still go to school, you could do so many things, as long as you're dedicating the results of those activities, they're connected to Krishna. That's what it means to finish one's material activities. I'm not prescribing that someone renounce. We were talking about this morning, how the gopis, they just ran for Krishna when they heard Krishna's flute, and they dropped everything. They burnt the cakes in the oven, and they dropped their babies, so many things. I'm not saying we should do that, because we should see things connected to Krishna. It's called Yukta Vairagya, And when we're engaged in Yukta Vairagya, using everything for Krishna's service, even maintaining our families, taking care of people we have to take care of, if we see this as connected to Krishna, then we're not engaged in material activities, and then we are engaged in Krishna's consciousness. Now, if you haven't finished your material activities, you could still engage in Krishna consciousness by the mercy of the pure devotee, but sometimes you'll be engaged and sometimes you won't be, depending upon what you're doing, depending on your consciousness. I think we have to end here. Thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti